Hi everyone, Frank Spangler here for Learning Media Skills, and today we are starting a brand new series on how to take better photographs, how to take better video using the Canon series DSLR cameras. As I think about my journey in video production, I've been doing it for about 30 years now. I started out with more traditional video type cameras, but then some years ago, Canon and some of the other brands started producing DSLR type cameras that could also shoot video. And I found it very convenient to be out in the field with just one unit. I could take beautiful stills and shoot video with the same device. Prior to that, I often had to go out with two cameras, a video camera and a still camera. Most of my clients were sending me internationally, and it saved on an airline ticket to have one photographer doing both stills and video. So when DSLRs started having the capability of shooting video, it was very convenient to switch to just one unit. Now, for this series of lessons, I have chosen the Canon 90D. I think the reason is because many of the people that I believe will find this series beneficial are going to be brand new to filming and taking photographs with a camera like this. And they're probably not going to want to start out with the higher end cameras. Ideally, I would recommend getting the Canon 5D Mark IV. That will give you just a little better video and have more options. But because many of the people that might be taking advantage of this series are maybe YouTube creators that have been filming with their phone and want to just make a step up, but might not want to invest a whole lot of money, this would be a good entry-level camera to get you started, the Canon 90D with the kit lens. And that's what we're going to use for this series. However, I want to say that most of the things that we will be sharing in this series will be applicable to filming and photographing with almost any DSLR camera. It would be helpful if you had a Canon, because some of the menu settings and that type of thing will be very similar across many different models of Canon cameras. But many of the principles that we'll be talking about would be applicable even if you did have a Sony camera, a Fuji, Nikon. We will be sharing principles that will work across the board with many different types of DSLR cameras. But I've chosen the Canon 90D. I guess I've always worked with Canon cameras. I really like the look of the images and the video that come off the Canon cameras. They have really great color science at the Canon organization, and for my preference, just beautiful looking images that are coming off the Canon cameras. The second reason why I like working with Canon is because of their autofocus capability. They have what's called a dual pixel autofocus that just seems to work so much better than some of the other cameras that I've worked with. And so for those two reasons, we're going to do this series with a Canon camera, and I hope that if you're kind of in the valley yet of making a purchase decision, that you will really consider the Canon camera. I believe it to be give some of the best results that I've seen. All right, so for today's lesson, it's just going to be kind of an introductory. You're just opening your box that came from the camera store or Amazon. And this one's already kind of been assembled. But let's just take a look at a few of the things that you would need to know to get started working with your camera in today's lesson. The first one I'd like to mention is the strap. This is probably one of the most important parts, I would like to say, of your camera unit for two reasons. First of all, it's going to save your camera. Too many cameras have met an early death because people chose not to use the strap. I know a lot of people that do still photography especially don't like to have the strap. They find it distracting and it's dangling down and affecting how they compose. It gets caught in things, and so they just prefer not to work with a strap. One of my daughters, for example, just won't use a strap. Even though I tell her she put that strap on, she won't do it. And so I get it, how some people might not want to put the strap on. But it'll save your camera. You know, you could be walking along, holding your camera along, you see something and you almost forget that you have a camera, and you go to point at something and the camera falls to the ground. And if it's a rocky ground, that could be it for your camera. The other reason that I like to recommend the strap is for people who are especially going to do video with the camera. It can add to your stability of shots. If you have this around your neck and you're filming, you can pull this right out, and you can shorten them if you want to not have the camera out as far as this. But if you bring it right out and add tension in the strap itself, this can add to the stability of your shot. Now, as you make a motion, a movement, kind of a slide, you're adding to the stability of your shot because of the tension in the strap. And so this becomes a very important tool to help you get good, steady shots. One of the other most important parts of your camera for safety of the camera itself is the lens cap. If you're not filming, I always put it back on, because as you're walking around, you could be having it at your side and you scrape up against a tree or a rock. If this lens cap isn't on, you've just damaged a very expensive lens. The kit lens that comes with the 90D, maybe that's not that expensive, but some of the other lenses are more expensive than this body itself. Most lenses actually, are more expensive than this DSLR body. And so when you're out there in the wild, it's a good idea to have that lens cap on, and that way you're going to save your lens. If you can, I would recommend popping over to a camera store and picking up 4 or 5 of these that you can have in your bag, because the lens cap is something that's often lost. You see a shot, you take the lens cap off, you set it down, you get your shot, you're walking away, and you forget your lens cap there. But if you have 3 or 4 more in your bag, you're going to be okay. And I know they can be kind of expensive, especially if you get the brand name ones, but it can really go a long way to saving your lens, and that's important. All right, let's take a look at the battery itself. This should be in your kit, and I would actually recommend picking up 2 or 3 more of these, especially if you're going to be shooting video out in the field and you're going to be working all day. You are going to run through these, and one of the worst things that can happen is that you come to the golden hour when that sun is setting and you're out of batteries. And so I would recommend picking up a number of these so that you have them in your bag. Now, how these work is you'll see a little arrow here, and that is the orientation that you need to put the battery into the charger. And it might take a couple of times to figure out how to use this, because if you don't put it in at the right place, it's not going to fit. But you'll find it a little trial and error, and then just click it in. And to charge it, just open up the little plugs there, put it in. Now, if you're working overseas, most of my shoots, for example, are in countries that use a different type of plug, so I always carry with me a power bar. What I usually do is pick out a power bar in a country that uses 220, and so that the power bar itself is rated for 240, but has plug-ins that accommodate our type of plugins here in North America. And that way, no matter where I am, I can use that powered bar to maybe charge 2 or 3 at a time. I have probably because every time I buy another Canon camera, I get another one of these. I have quite a few of them. And that works out great because with a power bar, I can be charging 3 or 4 at a time. And I don't have to get up in the middle of the night to swap out the batteries. They take an hour and a half or so to charge. When you plug it in, the little light here is going to flash. I believe it's flashing red. And when it's finished charging, it turns green, and you know that your battery is ready to go. And you just take it off. And to get it into the camera, it's this little flap right here. You can just take your thumb and open that up. And right now there's already a battery in here. To get the battery out, you have to push this little white lever up, and it'll just pop out there. And we pop in the new battery till it clicks, and then close the door. And you've got your battery in. The other thing that you're going to need to do is insert a memory card, an SD memory card. Now, I believe the one that comes with the camera kits themselves really aren't very big. Doesn't hold a lot. It's just to kind of test the camera. So you'll want to run out and pick up some high quality SD cards. I like the SanDisk cards. I like the Extreme Plus that are rated for 150 megabytes per second write-read speed at least. Some are even better than that these days. And that's especially important when filming 4K video. And that's the kind of video that we're going to recommend you film in the 4K settings, because there's so much more that you can do with 4K. Even if your final product is going to be in HD video for YouTube or whatever, if you're filming in 4K, there's so much more that you can do with it in the edit process if you've got that extra dimensions to work with, extra resolution. All right, so I've gone out, I've picked up some cards. If you know you're going to shoot a lot of video, I'd recommend the 256 cards. They're not that expensive these days. I think $80 or something like that. Pick up maybe 3 or 4 of those. Again, if you're shooting video, 4K video, it eats up the cards pretty fast. And again, the last thing you want to be doing is scrambling through your bag looking for another card just in that golden hour before sunset, and you're out of cards. So be sure you have enough memory cards to last you a full day of shooting. Okay, so here's how we do it. There's a little door at the side here. We just open that up, pops open, and we stick the card in. And if you've got the card oriented wrong, you're not going to be able to get it in very far. And if it just doesn't seem to fit in, then you know you've got it oriented wrong. Just flip the card and pop it in. Close the door. Snap it shut. So we've got our strap on, we've got our lens cap on, we've got our battery in, and we've got our SD card. We're ready to turn on the camera. All right, to turn on the camera, you've probably noticed the off-on button here on the 90D, and this is the way it is for most Canon cameras. It's right here. In fact, I think most DSLR cameras have the off-on button there. Let's open up our screen here. And what we want to do, first of all, is format the card. And we need to do that with the menu setting. And how we do that is just press the little menu button there. And depending on where your mode wheel is set, will determine what menu options you have here. And it'll also change if you have your system here set to taking still photographs in rather than the video. If we turn on the menu on again, you'll see that there are different menu options when you have it set to the camera, and different options when you have it set to the video camera setting. So if you're wanting to shoot video, this little dial has to be set to the red camera. If you're shooting stills, you have to turn it to the white camera. But for now, what we want to do is format our SD card. That's the first thing that you need to do. We always want to make sure that the card that we use, if you have a number of different cameras or you have friends that's sharing their cards with you, you always want to make sure that the SD card is formatted for the camera that you're working with. It's not always necessary, especially if you're staying within the Canon family, but it's still a good idea to format the SD card in the unit that you're actually going to be filming with, just in case it writes to the SD card in a particular or peculiar way compared to other cameras. And so that's the first thing that we want to do, is format the SD card in the camera that you're going to be using it in. Well, I think those are the main things that I wanted to show you in this introductory lesson. In our next lesson, we'll go through the menu settings, and I'll share with you what I believe to be optimal settings and my rationale for those settings. And then in lesson 3, we can go out in the field and start taking some video and stills. Until then, so long for now. See you next time.